Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Space Weather. We've got lots of stuff going on here. We've got a huge high-density wave having struck the Earth. We're about to go back into geomagnetic storm conditions, very likely. We've got CMEs to report on and lots more here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. I be your host, Mon, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash. So here's a CME from yesterday. This one was propagating right as we were premiering yesterday's space weather video. And let's take a look at some yesterday plus today imagery. There's some composite views from SDO. That's 3 different wavelengths there: ionized iron and ionized helium. So high-speed coronal hole wind stream showing up here. We'll get to that information soon. Huge increase in the magnetic field. But a decrease in solar activity. So an increase in activity here at Earth, a decrease in activity there at the Sun. New sunspot just rose over the northeastern limb up here. So far it's only alpha class and unlikely to produce large flares. So it's only got one magnetic field. There's your colorized magnetogram. We had a little bit of degradation and a little bit of growth in the southern hemisphere there. Things, for the most part, pretty stable. Take a moment to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Thanks for tolerating the platform on YouTube. Thanks to all of our viewers who viewed the content over the past 5+ years as we make the most detailed space weather videos and most detailed imagery of the sun you'll find any place. Check out our playlists for videos not involving space weather, like Do One Thing, The Diamond Anvil Too Hard to Smash, Driving, Riding, and Pro Tips, and more. Press like, press subscribe, press comment, press share. If you want to support the channel, become a member of the Smash team, especially at the gold or silver level. Thanks to our gold and silver Smash team members for being executive producers of the content. We appreciate that. The best value is the gold annual paid-up subscription. There is some additional content that comes out only for gold and silver level Smash team members. There's also a bronze level if you're unable or unwilling to open your cobweb-encrusted wallet and send us a few bucks per month. You can find links at the homepage at smashomash.com, as well as below the video. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, where we do things like cite facts, debunk nonsense, and put out, again, the most detailed space weather and imagery of the sun you'll find any place on the internet. Another link you can find on the homepage is the link to ShoreMed, as well as the link to our merch shop. So check that out, our merch shop. If you click the link, it'll be in order of best selling. And today's featured product is Mansa. Make America Not Suck Again. If you've noticed, America and indeed the world has been sucking, so I'm wearing the hat and also a shirt that says words that cannot be said because of the pathetic censorship on platforms like YouTube. And in order to make Earth not suck again, one of the ways about doing that is to make America not suck again. Our finest days lie ahead. It's up to you to make America and or Earth not suck again. So please do your part, act local, and think global. So pick up some merch if you want to support the channel that way. Give Smash staff a raise. She is a partner in the operation. She's not only our social media department, she's also our IT department. So help us out that way if you like. Start a conversation about making America not suck again. And no, it's not a political slogan. I don't conform to any political parties. My views are way too nuanced on all of that stuff. To be a Democrat or a Republican or a Libertarian, I'll pass. Another link you can find on the homepage is to ShoreMed. If you want to augment your health coverage with some association membership, like the American Better Health Organization, you get all kinds of features. If you click the link there, you can find it below the video in the description and on the homepage at smashomash.com. You get doctors by phone, counselors by phone, even virtual veterinarians. Improve the life of yourself by improving the life of your pets. Discounts on pharmacy items, labs, vitamins, MRIs, and CT scans. Also access to various different types of insurance that are only available to ShoreMed group members. Take your health into your own hands with an association membership at ShoreMed. Link below the video and on the homepage at smashomash.com. Right there it is. And let's get to the volcano report. So we've got the Alade volcano here showing a heat signature. As you can see in that image right there, a little bit of magma, hot liquid magma. It's not lava until it comes above the surface, folks. So let's get to the list here. Abiko producing a 13,000-foot ash plume there on Paramushir Island. Alade producing a 10,000-foot volcanic ash plume there, flight level 100. Sakurajima also erupted, 7,000-foot ash plume from Sakurajima. Semaru, flight level 140 from Semaru. Popocatépetl, sporadic emissions of volcanic ash and mild explosive activity. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Fuego exploding, flight level 180 from Fuego. Flight level 220 over Colombia from Nevado del Ruiz. Ecuador featuring our two usual suspects, Sangay and Revenador. Sangay producing a 23,000-foot ash plume as it explodes. Revenador explosively producing an 18,000-foot ash plume. That's flight level 180. 24,000-foot ash plume over Sabancaya in Peru as it also explodes. And the real story of the day is some interesting earthquake activity indeed. So a massive series of quakes in the Atlantic Ocean. So this is super interesting. The largest quake of the past 24, well, it's just moved off the list there, but it was a 5.7. And I'm going to zoom in here on the Reykjanes Ridge, the southern portion of it, in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge there. You know, because Iceland is a portion of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And check out all the quakes that happen around this plate boundary. A massive number of quakes happening there on both sides of the plate boundary in the past 24 hours, so that's the seismic story of the day for sure. Do you think those are foreshocks? Let us know in the comments. So you're going to see the Reykjanes Ridge, Reykjanes Ridge, Reykjanes Ridge over and over there on the list. And there was a 5.7 here just a little over 24 hours ago. So crazy number of quakes there. There's a 5.3. There was also a 5.1 at Papua New Guinea, but that's definitely the story of the day, seismically speaking. Insane number of quakes there. Sort of southeast of Greenland in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and you can see all of those Reykjanes Ridge quakes. And let's get back to space. Here's the last 24 hours from SDO. In 171 angstroms, the house favorite wavelength. Let us know what your favorite wavelength is in the comments. So we've actually had the radio flux dip here, I think. We'll get to it in a moment. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux. There is the 1-year chart of that. It looks like it's been level here since yesterday, but a slight reduction in solar activity since yesterday, I think. There you go, 135 solar flux units is the radio flux. So what's really interesting, though, is the very strong magnetic fields and the strong negative BZ. We'll get to that. We are expecting to be back into geomagnetic storm conditions any minute. The next time the planetary K-index gets updated, we're expecting back to geomagnetic storm conditions. So we'll show you the auroral forecast here in a moment also. Looking like a coronal hole wind stream, but NOAA suggesting that it's one of the CMEs. It looks exactly like a coronal hole wind stream. We'll get to that. Here's the last 4 hours of Earth's geospace in terms of magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And you can see it's pretty turbulent and high pressure out there. That's Earth's magnetic moment from space out to about 12 Earth diameters. The units here are nanopascals, magnetohydrodynamic pressure. So we've got a high-speed wind here at the moment. We saw a very high-density wind. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground, showing you the most likely places to see aurorae, pipeline, power line, and rail line induction. That's geospace delta B. Changes to Earth's B field. The units here are nanotesla, magnetic flux density. So some sudden and unexpected geomagnetic storm conditions, we got to a KP6 with a huge increase in the magnetic field strength and some high-density incoming plasma. Here's the auroral forecast. And again, I'm expecting this to go back to a KP5 any minute here. And we'll show you why on the next slide, but this is the auroral forecast. And there you can see that the size of those auroral ovals there increasing a little bit, then decreasing, then increasing, and so on. And let us know if you've got any imagery of the aurora. We'll be happy to share it on Twitter, twitter.com/smashomash. So check it out. Here's the likely solar wind coronal hole high-speed stream here. It made it up to over 90 protons per cubic centimeter. So a very high-density wave on the leading edge of that coronal hole high-speed stream. Now we certainly saw 92 protons per cubic centimeter there, but there's 85. So now we've also seen this top pane here, the BZ is, well, it looks like it's converging back on the zero line. So, but at the moment, a very strong field, 21 nanotesla there. And 21 nanotesla with a negative BZ of 15 is pretty geomagnetic stormy. Also solar wind speed here just recently climbing over 550 kilometers per second. Current conditions are just under 540 kilometers per second. Again, it looks just like a coronal hole high-speed stream there. We'll see what happens if we see that strong negative BZ continue. Expect geomagnetic storms. So there's your GOES magnetometers for the past 3 days. And you see sudden variations happening there as we would expect with the onset of a coronal hole high-speed stream there. The shock wave, the density wave at the front of it, causing major perturbations there in the magnetic fields. So here is the top view ecliptic plane field plot, looking at the solar magnetic fields, the polarity of the heliospheric current sheet. And Earth has recently crossed into a North Pole current sheet shown there in green. And I would still note that the North Solar Polar Field is still kind of hanging out at the North Heliographic Polar region. See that green blob right there? That is the North Solar Polar Field kind of hanging out, taking its time for its migration. It's sort of behind the schedule of the South Solar Polar Field, which has entirely left the South Solar Polar region. So that'll be evident in the next frame here. Here's the line of sight field plot, and you can see a little bit of green up here. North Solar Polar Field there still hanging out around the North Pole. And let's move to coronal holes next. Here's our coronal hole line of sight plot. We've got some North Pole oriented coronal holes that are very well defined here, rotating in from the east. Here's the view from the SDO. You can see those well-defined coronal holes there in the upper left. That's the northeastern quadrant. And thanks for leaving a comment, TinMan1057. Next, moving to sunspots. Again, we've got another sunspot group here. This group's going to get a name for sure. It's only an alpha class sunspot at the moment. That'll be sunspot 3111 right there in the northeastern limb. I would also note that the fact that we are seeing sunspots at all these different latitudes, you see this is so much higher latitude than sunspot 3110. That's an indication that there is a long way to go for this solar cycle, because sunspots approach the equator at the end of the cycle. We are not even at the middle of the cycle, known as solar maximum. So here's a close-up of the SDO continuum. This sunspot group over here looks like it's mostly evaporated. Otherwise, things are largely stable there. No major changes in sunspots. We do have a minor proton event happening. It was likely associated with some C-class flares. There's a little uptick in the GOES proton flux there. Nothing to really cause very much effect on the Earth. It was likely caused by this sort of triple C-class flare here. Some relativistic particles there showing up on the GOES proton flux. And let's take a look at flaring. We've included both 94 and 131 angstroms. And thanks for leaving a comment, Mama D1K. Good morning to both of you. So there's 94 angstroms. Let's zoom in on the southern hemisphere. As that sunspot group is very large and it's quite magnetically complex, I'm sort of expecting this sunspot group to produce a major flare here in the next 24 to 36 hours. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And when I say ion, oh, well, pardon the pun. Remember, folks, don't get solar flares and coronal mass ejections confused. They are separate phenomenon. Solar flares are photons of the X-ray variety. Coronal mass ejections are primarily protons. They also consist of helium ions, electrons, and some other heavy elements. So it's basically the difference between gas and light. Coronal mass ejections are gas. Solar flares are light, X-rays. So there's 131 angstroms, and we'll zoom back out in this wavelength. That's the last 24 hours from SDO. And let's zoom way out and see what's going on overhead. It's a beautiful, clear, starry morning here over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Mars there near the apex of the ecliptic. As Jupiter sets in the west, Venus will rise shortly in the east. Also Deneb just setting on the horizon there. That star chart is from in-the-sky.org. Put in your own zip code if you want to make your own star chart. We face ours to the south, as that is where the ecliptic is located in the northern hemisphere. So here is your solar system forecast, just coming off a new moon. I'm energized because of sleeping well. I'm a reverse werewolf. Did you know? Yeah, I sleep well and stay up in the daytime around new moon. Here's your solar system forecast. This is the next week of what will be occurring. Here's where things will be in a week. And next we'll look at some coronagraphs. So this spectacular and picturesque coronal mass ejection that happened yesterday, we've got some additional imagery of that. Of course, we started out today's video showing that. That's yesterday's coronagraph imagery. And here is today's coronagraph imagery so far, 26 frames. And we would show you the view from stereo A here at Lagrangian 0.5, but there's old data once again. So we're going to show you the Soho-Lascaux C3 by itself. Do a little rock back here. Venus showing up there. Yes, Venus making an appearance there on the Soho-Lascaux C3. So there's that great CME there, not looking like it's earthly directed at all. It's sort of on the far side of the sun, I believe. Really cool feature there, like an internal higher density filament surrounded by a bubble-like feature. And of course, like every cloud in the sky, folks, every CME is a unique, unprecedented phenomenon. Those are probably the relativistic protons striking the Soho-Lascaux C3 there, causing some errors. So here's a zoomed out view. This is the last 24 hours in composite, 304 angstroms plus Soho-Lascaux C2 and Soho-Lascaux C3. Great view of Venus there rolling in. And let's get into our bonus features segment. Solar filaments are next. And there are a lot. So don't be surprised to see additional CMEs here. We could see some earthly directed ones. Those are some massive filaments there on the Earth-facing side of the solar disk. Those dark absorption features there. Huge filaments there suspended in the corona at the moment, kind of pointed toward Earth. So here's the last about 2.5 hours from the GOES 16 SUVI and its spectacular wide field of view. When CMEs do happen, they show up great on the GOES 16 SUVI. That's why we regularly stream it on the Twitch channel, which is, by the way, twitch.tv/smashomash. And we're almost at our bonus feature segment here. First, one more series of composite images from SDO. That's Iron Star, 335, 193 and 94 angstroms, 3 different species of ionized iron. And let's zoom in a little bit. That's yesterday plus today's data. And let's check on satellites. So some minor charging hazards there on the surface of satellites caused by low energy electrons. Nothing to write home about there. GOES electron flux here did reach into warning levels, but then suddenly crashed with the onset of the coronal hole high-speed stream. The density wave and the high-speed portion there crashing the electron flux, as we show regularly on the channel. So here's the relativistic forecast, relativistic electron forecast. And yeah, I would tend to agree. Actually, this is probably going to be way down here, but we'll see what happens. You'll see it on tomorrow's video. That's NOAA's forecast for relativistic electrons. And here is the 1-year graph to put it in context. That's from solon.info if you want to check that out, solon.info. Next, we'll show the vibrational frequency of the ionosphere. And this image is showing the temperature of the thermosphere during solar minimum versus solar maximum. It's showing you the penetration of electromagnetic radiation and the chemical densities of those layers of the atmosphere. So here's the vibrational frequency, the F layer located about 300 kilometers of altitude, the upper ionosphere, the bridge between Earth and space. And we've certainly got some significant high-frequency anomalies happening there around the South American anomaly. It's actually called the South Atlantic anomaly, which is over the South American continent. Maybe it should be renamed. It's someplace like right about there. And let's bring up the anomaly graph here. This is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. We show both of these daily on the channel. So some huge high-frequency anomalies happening there around southern South America, and some low-frequency anomalies happening in the eastern Pacific for sure. See those big swings there. Also some low-frequency anomalies in the North Atlantic. Anyway, there's the latest image. That's 10:15 Universal Time ionogram, 10:15 Universal Time anomalygram. We'll also show the total electron content forecast. It depicts the free electrons between your GPS satellite and your handset from about 12,000 miles of altitude down to Earth level. 12,500 miles of altitude, something like that. Here are the free electrons, the coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics model. It'll show you the most likely spots for GPS errors. We might see some anomalies happening in this if you feel like watching this throughout the day. We may see some oddities happening here in the total electron content forecast. It's normal during coronal hole high-speed streams. So we'll also show the latest intensitygram and latest magnetogram before we get into some weather information, since there is a series of hurricane watches and warnings over large portions of Florida. So here is your new sunspot. That'll be 3,111. Once again, it is only an alpha class sunspot, so it's unlikely to produce major flares. I would keep an eye on this area down here. I believe that's going to produce a significant flare here because of the way the umbrae are spreading apart. There's probably some huge filaments that are being suspended by those fields that are going to collapse and may, as a result, be launched into the greater solar system. So here's the last 24 from SDO and ionized helium. Another house favorite wavelength. It's 304 angstroms. Again, very high likelihood of coronal mass ejections. Likelihood of solar flares not really any higher than yesterday, statistically speaking, but lots of filaments there on the Earth-facing side of the solar disk. So let's get into the meteorology segment now, and there's some hot water around Florida. And, thing to understand about heavy rains in flat areas is it takes a long time for it to drain, folks. It's not like a flash flood in a mountainous zone. It's very different than that. So let's take a look at all of this hot water. And yeah, you can see all that hot water there on the west side of Florida. mean, that water right there, that's 86.5 degrees. So, and I believe that's going to be part of what's going to be pushing that hurricane a bit farther to the east than it was originally expected. It's going to brush right up the Florida coast, and Tampa's going to get hit with over a foot of rain. We'll show you the forecast on that here in a moment. So that's the current state of affairs there. Cuba getting kaplastered by that. It's going to, as soon as it crashes into the land, it's going to lose strength, which is a good thing. The pressure is going to go up according to the GFS forecast, which is believable when it's at about 72 hours. So here are the surface winds of the eastern world. And check it out. We've got a strong low right there. Wow. Hurricane force winds there. Near, near Vietnam, I guess. And here are the jet streams of the east. Here are the jet streams of the west. Let me rotate that a little more. There we go. How about the surface winds? Surface winds of the central world. And the jet streams of the central world. As we bridge the gap between space weather and Earth weather. So here's your weather.gov map, and you can see all of those red areas. Those are hurricane warnings, tropical storm warnings, hurricane watches. If your county's lit, click your county on the weather.gov map. Weather.gov is what we're looking at there. Please heed flood warnings because you don't really want to be in waist-deep water. It's unhealthful. If the ocean makes its way into your home, you should have already left. Now you can see it's going to make landfall there at about 950 millibars. Now 957 millibars. So certainly expecting some serious effects of that. That's the 72-hour GFS wind and pressure forecast. And here's your total accumulated precipitation forecast, and you can see over a foot of rain forecasted for places like Tampa. So huge amounts of rain for the entire southern portion of the state expected there. You're looking at least 4 inches for most of the state, besides the panhandle, which will largely stay dry here as the storm is making a turn to the east. Here's a close-up of that. Again, over a foot of rain forecasted there for Tampa. That will be, shall we say, not good. So once again, that's your 72-hour GFS total accumulated precipitation forecast in inches. And you can see there as many as 20 inches there forecasted for several counties there, expecting to be inundated. So here's the current state of affairs. This is the pressure map. And since we've been showing the GFS forecast, we're going to show the Euro forecast. So let's slowly advance this. This is the storm track based on the European model. The European model, it looks like it's going to be pretty similar to the GFS model there, as it does lose a lot of strength as it goes over the land. So less convective fuel happening there, but hot water there on the west coast of Florida. It'll be quite strong when it makes landfall. Here's what's going on with lightning in the past about 10 hours. Okay. Let's just forget that and see what's going on currently. So here's the current lightning situation from lightningmaps.org. Looks like no terrestrial strikes in the U.S. at the moment. Next time you hear thunder, check it out. It's pretty sweet. And here's the U.S. Doppler radar. You can see southern Florida. They're already getting kaplastered with some heavy rain. Looks like Miami, the Keys, getting hammered. briefly zoom out to show Alaska and Hawaii. We'll be focusing on the lower 48. Yowzers. So heavy rain's already showing up there. Here's a shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. You can see the eye wall there just making it over Cuba. Just about to get back into that hot water in the Gulf of Mexico, where that thing will gain strength once again after losing a bit of strength over the nation of Cuba. So there's the water vapor scenario. And it looks like there is some dry mass of air pushing it a little bit to the east here. That will not serve to strengthen it, but all this warm water in this area most certainly will. So that is not exactly what you'd call good news for Florida. So here is the recap U.S. Doppler radar map. Clouds and fog at the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite, shortwave radiation 3.9 nanometers. And there is the water vapor map. And thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-a-Mash, signing off, and may that solar wind be at your back.